my man Cody, I think I sent him a bad link, but we're all here. Thank God, he's my main man. Cody, man, you showed me a picture of your backyard. I can't wait to show my wife. Like, we watch those like Western movies and stuff, and she's like, that's my dream. That is such a beautiful, beautiful view, dude. You are a fortunate man.
Yeah, thank you.
Abel, what's going on?
What's up, Abel?
How you doing? Oh, I gotta say also hi, my man Jose, man. I'm gonna start paying you for being my promo guy, man. You know how to do it. I've been doing this thing for like 3 years and I'm not that good. That's awesome, man. I really appreciate that. I really do, guys. I love doing this gig, and I'm so grateful that you guys support me like that. It's just unbelievable. So how you doing, Cody? Guys, I was gonna clip the picture, but I gotta convert it to a PDF, and I don't have it on my laptop I'm using now. Cody has the most amazing backyard. It's just this long, open space. It's got a fence. Then there's that old-fashioned barn. I think there's another house behind there, a small stretch of woods, and then these azure and white mountains off in a distance. It is like scenic beyond scenic, man. It's where I'm at, it's forever green. And he's like, oh yeah, I love fall. I'm like, dude, I don't get fall. All I get is green and green, man. You're such a fortunate dude. Hey, Jose, what's going on, man? How you doing tonight, brother? Thank you for stopping by. The Zonk. I think he's more of an old timer than me. The Zonk's here. Things are going good. So, Cody, listen, we haven't been on for 2 weeks, guys. I'm sorry. I've been under the weather. And then, the ace per head, they kind of dumped the tech guy and said, well, look, you got to take on tech duties. So I've had to learn the camera, and you guys know I'm kind of like a Cro-Magnon. So the tech things, then I had to learn the audio, and I was really under the weather. So I just really couldn't manage it. So I apologize for not being around. But I'm back now. I'm back. So evening, dudes. Yep. Oh, I think I'm going to put you up already. So Cody, tell us, we haven't talked in 2 weeks. I mean, we chat on a Twitter thing. I got to get back to that thing is kind of a little hard to deal with. Where you at, Cody? Tell me where you're at this stage.
Man, it's kind of hard to describe. There's this tiny little bit of hope floating in, just this little bit of but then what really always grounds me is I just get so bummed out about Tua's health. And I just think it's not sustainable for him. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak on it like I'm a doctor, but just from my common sense, my eyes tell me it's not good for him to get hit in the head. And that's what happens in football. Get hit. There's no way he can avoid it as long as he wants, but he will get hit in the head hard again. It's inevitable. He's a quarterback. Will that just put him out again? You can't bank on it. And I don't know. I really feel for the guy, and I really, it sucks. So that was my hope. Tua was kind of my hope, having the franchise quarterback, having all the receivers, all the weapons, all that, but you need him to pull the trigger on most of those plays to make them work. So,
it's the thing is it's hard for some people to understand. I get it. You see Allen, you're like, that guy was concussed, but then he bounces back and he's back in. And then Tua, he gets concussed and he's out for weeks. He's still not out of the protocol.
Yeah. And,
I spent my whole life doing crazy stuff. I'm pretty calm now, but when I was a kid, I was a wild man. I just, and so I remember the first time I got a concussion, I was playing baseball. I was 9 years old. Someone struck out. I was talking to somebody, and he threw the aluminum bat as hard as he could. He struck out and hit me in the back of the head. I remember going black and just waking up on the ground. I got up, and I'm like, oh, my head hurts. And I just rode 2 miles home on my bicycle. And I used to do nutcrackers at 9 years old, playing football. I fell off. I was drunk trying to get a sign from my friend who had open heart surgery, and I watched Indiana Jones. I tried to swing under the awning of the theater, and I missed. I slipped, a hand slip. I went head first, a story and a half on my head, and I was out. But when I woke up, the ambulance came, and I said, oh, yeah, I got a concussion, and my hands popped off. And then I went to the hospital, and I drove home an hour later. And I've been hit so hard in the head. I've seen stars, but I bounced back. But I had a friend, he's real brilliant. He had a 2,100 board rating of chess, like 18 years old. His parents would never let him play football. He always was jealous I played football. When I got done with college, he started playing flag with me. And all of a sudden, he just started feeling sick to his stomach after every game. And I realized later it was concussions. And this guy never even really got hit. And he would get concussion after concussion after concussion. Some people their brains, I would get a concussion, he would get a concussion, but he was done for the day over the most minor hit. I could take hit blows to the head, and I was fine. I'm paying for it now, don't get me wrong. I got issues, but Tua is just not a guy who can absorb brain trauma. But then you get a guy like Allen, he's getting concussions all the time, but certain people, they just can navigate through it. Yeah. And so, you could say, well, this guy only had this many concussions and Tua didn't make a big deal of it. But you could see when he gets hit, it is like everything shuts down. He can't navigate through it. And so it is a scary situation. It's up to him to make the choice. But clearly, his brain cannot handle the scrambling like other guys can.
Yeah.
But we could have mitigated that over the years. But the way we've designed things, it kind of puts him out there in even worse situation. So I don't think he can handle it long term. I just don't. Pretty sure Tua was fine to come back, but PR is a powerful thing. I think Tua might have neck issue. I don't know, but I've never seen. This is just me. I've never seen Allen with all the crazy hits he get just go rigid. And then, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think there is a PR thing to it, but I just don't. If you look at if you look at his body, he's hurt every year for something. He's always had knee injuries all the way back. He hasn't been healthy since high school. I'm just not sure. I think the guy's a good quarterback. I think that he could be better quarterback once he gets the mental aspects down and he's given a better offense. But I'm just not sure his body can handle it. I just don't. There's a long track record, and it's a physical part. But then I also think that maybe it's not concussion. I think the kid should still play if he wants to, but it's very scary. I think. Yeah.
I have a theory that it's not even based in any kind of science or anything. It's just if you want to sell some hopium. Maybe these guys, they're all just getting concussed, right? They're sweeping concussions under the rug. I know if they spot it, they'll take them out, but there's concussions getting through. We just saw Josh Allen get right back on the field. Maybe Tua's just getting a regular amount of concussions, but his body reacts in a way, the fencing position. Maybe it's just a neurological reaction that only he has, but it's not really making the concussions worse for him than the other people. It's just something his body does as a stimulus. And he's getting the same amount of concussions as all these other guys. But the way he gets them makes it look like the guy's dying.
It could be. I'm no doctor.
Yeah, that's my hopium is that. But even that, they have his number. The NFL, the minute that guy bumps his head, they're taking him out of the game and he's sitting. He's not going to do 1 week, 2 weeks. It's going to be longer every time. Isn't that? I would think that was how they would deal with it. But give us 1 year, no concussions. Right? Draft a bunch of O-linemen next year. See how you can just start getting with this. Draft a bunch of O-linemen next year. Trade for some. Just give us one concussion-free year and do something special to it. And then right off into the sunset, and you'll be the best quarterback in Miami history.
Well, Jose saying on a bright side, if you take away the self-inflicting concussion, it's been over a year since he's been concussed. The question now is how much damage that latest concussion do. He wasn't concussed at all last year. He wasn't. But, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just know that there is serious brain trauma going on in all the NFL. There's no way it's not. I played, I was in fights and I was hit with baseball bats, even as a kid, but even older and just fights and stuff like that. I did crazy stuff, but I'm paying for it now. I know my brain scrambled. I already know that. I feel like my mental acuity is already dropping. So if you're playing on the NFL level and you played at college level, I was only like a minor walk on, and it was a short term thing, and I was out. But there's guys playing 3-4 years, and then they go in the NFL and they play 10 years. These guys are every one of them's got some kind of. That's why the average lifespan for football players is like 50-something years old.
Yeah. And what sucked in that same game, Josh Allen, runs out of bounds on a scramble. He's about ready to hit the bench. He just sprints over the bench. Our guy just got concussed, who I love, man. I love the guy. And he looked weak because he couldn't take a hit, even though he was putting his head down trying to deliver one. And then Josh is, just easily jumping over the bench out there. It's just like, this guy's a physical freak. And I don't say you have to run, but you have to be built in a way to take all these hits. And Josh Allen, that body type, that's why they want a 6'4", 225 quarterback. That's the stereotype for a reason.
It's a shame that he didn't. He's a shame he wasn't just a little bit smarter. He should have slid. I mean, I think with his release and a good system, a good line, the guy could still play.
He could still be successful right now. He slid, and he's navigated the hits. He slid down. He's done all these crazy judo moves to not get hit. Like what? It's that
paid off big for him. I think the judo paid off.
Yeah.
Flashing lights, I said, would not affect you if you had a concussion. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he wore sunglasses. I had a real bad migraine at work a few weeks ago. I wore sunglasses all day, and maybe he went there with sunglasses. I don't know.
Yeah, somebody said too, it went to Disney on Ice the same night. Is that true?
I thought it was the next day. It wasn't the same night. I don't think.
I don't pay. I'm so like, I don't know anything on the outside. It's very rare. I didn't even heard of that. I just kind of studied. Yeah. Oh, Dolphins. I mean, but they should have been drafting quarterback. Listen, my thing is, it goes back to Chris Greer. If he didn't spend the picks like a drunken sailor, and he didn't reach for certain players and said, hey, you know what? My guy's not here. Let me trade back and acquire more picks. He would have still been loaded with picks. He could have used some of those picks to acquire a quarterback. You should always get an extra quarterback, because even if you develop them, look what for a couple of years, the Patriots, they got rid of Jimmy G. They got rid of Brissett. They got rid of another guy, and they were getting good picks for it. But the problem is we spend so much draft capital, doubling up, 2 on Waddle, a draft class practically on Hill, Chubb, and 2 on Eichenberg, Rosen. I mean, Dieter, and just throwing all these picks away, and then all those back end guys, that it makes it hard when you have so many holes to get another quarterback. So now, if you go get a quarterback next year, you're crippling this team. It needs so much help. It really does, in my opinion. Hey, Richard, what's going on, man? Curtis, this team, if you could tell, has players that decide if they will show up or possibly play. We got a soft team. There's even like I wrote down some notes, that whole Crossman thing. Like, I don't want to say something bad to them at game day. Like, I don't want them to think about it. Like, what is that, dude? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they're so high on confidence in the building. That's
If you need that much help for your confidence, man, there's something definitely wrong. But to me, even like Butch Barry saying, Eichenberg and Jones, they're really trending in the right direction. Like, this is it really does. I've never said this before because I didn't feel it. I mean, I kind of said, like, I'm not so high on it, but now I really feel like it's almost this new age, everybody gets a prize thing. I do believe the coaching staff, maybe not Weaver or something, but they're so worried about players' feelings. They're so worried about guys being emotionally wounded. I don't think you can. You got to have a certain level of that, but this has gotten a little crazy, in my opinion. Like, Crossman, you're having an atrocious day on special teams, and you don't want to call people out because you don't want to dwell on it. That's ridiculous. That's insane. I've never heard of a successful team like that. That's how I feel about O-linemen. They appreciate the value because they are rare, how rare they are. A desperate team might offer a fifth. Well, no one's offering a fifth for Eichenberg. Everyone knows the film. Only this is my opinion. And I there's people that I really do respect that say Eichenberg is pretty good or whatever. I'm not gonna, put them under the bus. But I don't think anybody would ever offer a fifth for Eichenberg because you would find almost anybody better than him. I think he'd be worth nothing. I don't think he'd be worth anything. I don't think anybody would even have him on the roster. I think he's that bad. I think if you look at this team, we throw the fastest in the league, which means it's the easiest job. When you add in pass rush mitigation of all the screens and play actions you run, this is like one of the highest, if not the highest in the league. If you put him in any other offense, that's a traditional, semi-traditional offense, he would be exposed like, the king without clothes. I don't know.
Yeah, imagine him playing that Buffalo New York game where they were just banging bodies trying to run the ball with their offensive lines. And I thought maybe he was more of a technician in terms of he could run block a little bit in terms of getting the spots, be an athlete, but he's not an athlete. And I put something on my Twitter. It was a Mike McDaniel cut up on the Dolphins media page of him explaining this play. It was I don't remember if it was third down, a big third down, but it was a Jalen Wright, Alec Ingold lead outside zone run. And both Jackson and Eichenberg overcommit right away. The defenders go inside, and they just go to a spin cycle. And it's so horrible. And they keep replaying it, showing the good parts. But all I can see is Eichenberg doing a full 360 and landing on the ground. And they would rewind it and show it. And he's just sitting there going back and forth, 360. And it's like, wow, why would you put that one on? And Mike says, oh, they kind of overplayed a little bit at the beginning. That's how he explained it. So it was horrible looking.
It is. How is Duke? Hey, Happy Hippie, what's going on there, brother? How is Duke? Duke Riley's not bad. If you bring him in for rundown situations, you bring him in as a special team player and like your third or fourth guy for spot duty, he's not bad. Duke Riley's, he gets, he had man coverage outside. He played under instead of over. And he got beat last year, but he's not supposed to be long-term duty. I think the guy's a decent player. He's made some plays. I mean, you got to look to see what a lot of these backup linebackers are like. I think he's just a good special teamer and for small spot duties. I'm not really down on him as some people are. I don't think he's a starter, long term, but you can fit him in here or there. I mean, he can actually attack, stack, and shed pretty decently. He can cover okay. I mean, he's just like an okay guy, but he's, maybe a fourth linebacker. To me, Eichenberg for $4 million is even like crazier. Or Jackson for 12, I mean, yeah, we traded. And remember, was it McCoy? Saints drafted McCoy. We got second for Rosen, and then we got a third for Dieter. They ended up with McCoy, and the guy's like a top 10, top 15 offensive lineman. We got screwed on that. We got screwed big time. Eichenberg on the field is one of the great. Yeah, well, because remember, think of it this way. Greer spent a second and third on him. If he gets rid of him, along with all the failures that he's had, he's very concerned about his resume. Anyone who thinks Tua has a future, I think he could. I think the problem is the concussions. Happy Wolverine, do you think it's his play, or do you think that it's the concussion part? Which one do you think?
Good question.
Tua is a boxer with a glass jaw. Yeah, I agree on that. I totally agree on that. I do. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair take. But you can mitigate that. Look at Jimmy G. Jimmy G's always injured. He went to the Super Bowl, and he brought them to the conference championship. Tua could be just a guy that you got here while you build the framework, and he gets you to really close. And in the meantime, you're setting up for the next quarterback. I mean, the 49ers, they spent all that on Trey Lance. They had Jimmy G, went to Trey Lance, and then they found Purdy. There's a little bit of luck there, but they had the right framework. Problem with us is we have a very, very, very poor framework, and the framework's been set up for Tua and his speed throwing ability. And so without him, we're doomed. And so the build itself, because if you look, offensive line and run game is the consistency on offense. And we're inconsistent in our run game, and our offensive line isn't good. And we've spent so many picks. We have one of the lowest rosters as far as homegrown rosters, most of them the cheap free agents or big-time free agents we got from someplace else. And so I think the core of the roster has been built very poorly, which is insane considering the massive draft capital we've had. So I think Tua, I'm not saying Tua is the greatest. I do think if you took the concussion part out of it, he'd be pretty good and he could get better. Concussion part it's an unknown because you never know when he's going to go down. But if you had built the right team, you wouldn't need a speed throw and you could have a backup quarterback and you could move forward. Look, the Steelers went with O'Donnell, lost, and a couple of years later they found Roethlisberger and they were ready to win and they won. So
yeah. Imagine if Tua was asked to throw the ball 23, 24 times a game with the
like the rest of the league.
And he could be so efficient. That's what he was. He was an efficient, I don't want to say was, but he's an efficient quarterback. He can make the throws. And if there's a run game and you're not putting it all, I felt like the games we lost, he had to be perfect. He wasn't even close to perfect, but he would have had to be perfect in those games. If the less was asked of him and he had more help, any quarterback, I hear the naysayers probably go, yeah, any quarterback, less you ask him, but Tua could really deliver. He could have really been something if we would have built this thing right. But here's my question, Curtis, for the hopium and for that little part inside of me that just wants to see us win. Is there any chance? I know there's a philosophy. I know Greer. I know there's a philosophy in the building. But if they're smart, they can see that that's not working. Is there any way they could correct it? Like really just go, okay, we're going to invest in the offensive line here. We really have to. We can see it. Like, is that a possible scenario that we keep some of these guys and we actually build?
Well, I think that, yeah, you could improve the situation if you make the right moves next year. Problem is you'd have to have a very, very, very high hit rate in the draft, which is not easy. And they would have to be guys that you would have to hit on. Then they would have to produce early. Because this whole team has been built for a quick 22 and 23 window. And 24, you can see already closing. Guys like Tehran's going to leave. Well, you say we got Paul. Will Paul be ready next year? And will he be ready to the right level? Could it maybe takes 2 years or 3 years? Ramsey's getting older. Sealer's still there, but he's getting a little bit older. Phillips, he's not going to be back next year full time. You're going to keep Chubb. There's a lot of guys. Is Holland going to be back? Hill's going to be a year older. So the problem is it's incongruency. The offensive line's been built incongruent. You don't have much depth. You'd have to fill it with young guys. That's always problematic. You got two small receivers that are always dinged. One's getting older. How long will Jonnu be here? You got a quarterback who's got concussion issues. I mean, I like Wright and Achane, which is good, but besides Jonnu, you don't really have any tight ends. And on the defensive side, you need a D tackle. Seal is good. How long can Campbell play for? Will Phillips be back and when? And how good? I mean, it's 2 years now he's lost.
Chubb is on him anymore. It sucks, man. But in your mind, you can't ever go, all right, we got Phillips coming back. You got it thinking like, is he really going to come back and for how long? The guy he's built like a god on the outside, but I don't know, man. He had issues he medically retired. Yeah. I don't know.
I love the guy. I love him. But he's just, it was a roll of the dice, but we took a lot of them. But there's so many pieces. And I just don't think that you're going to be able to get all the stuff in to get this thing right in time. And then it would mean, so if you go from 2019 or you go through from 2016, Greer's been here 6 or 9 years.
Yeah.
And so you're talking 11 years before maybe we're going to get there, 12 years. I mean, that's insane.
That sounds horrible.
Horrible. But it's the same thing we do with the players. Well, it's okay. We don't want to hurt their feelings. Let's just, like Eichenberg. Eichenberg's not capable, but he just keeps getting put in. And Greer is not capable, but he keeps getting put in. And a lot of people defend him, but I don't see how you can when you go over the body of work. You go over, well, we went to the playoffs twice. Oh, okay. Well, what happens if we don't go this year? It's total crash and burn.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Greer shouldn't have a job. Injured but you can't really move on. See, the Dolphins did so many things. Look, they locked up McDaniel for a few more years. They locked up Hill for a few more years. If they didn't lock up Hill, they could possibly have traded him and got some value right now.
Yeah.
He's like disappeared, and he's yelling on the sidelines, and you locked up Tua now. So problem is that you've committed so heavy and you've created this narrow build. And I understand there's so many fans out there. There's one fan, he was a viewer. He's a Dolphin fan, and he's like, I'm 67. Like, I only got 1 year left in me. And I didn't know whether he meant like I don't got 1 year left as far as like my desire to watch the team. I can't take it anymore. Or like, I don't know if I'm going to be living past that. And, it's like, it's hard for me. Like I get really like emotional because I want to cover this team accurately. I want to cover this team, for the fans, to tell them the truth. But then I see things like that. Like there's one guy, I'm not going to tell who he is, but he's a paraplegic. And he's the nicest guy. He's such a good guy. He supports me like you wouldn't believe. And he can't get to any games. He's going to the Colts game. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, how do I, my credo was, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to tell the truth. And like, I did believe when I first started this, the Dolphins were going to do good. But then as I started digging, I'm like, I started to have to really be honest because I was writing for Finn's News before this. I'm like, how do you take these people whose heart is invested? Some of them are waiting their whole life, and they might not make it. It was one guy. He's like, I don't know if a couple of years ago, used to listen to me. I don't think he listens to me anymore. He's like, I don't think I got a year or two left in me. He had cancer. And he's like, I just want to see this team win. Then you got me saying, your offensive line sucks. Eichenberg sucks. This team sucks. Greer sucks. How do I cover this team? It's been it's hard to be a fan of this team, but it's really hard to cover it fairly. And I think that's why a lot of people choose the hopium positive route. So this is a very bad situation all the way around, because the reality is we've had unprecedented draft capital, 2019 going 2020. And here we are, oldest team, one of the oldest teams in the NFL, breaking down and failing. And what do you do with that? And what is Ross going to do with that? It's really, really hard situation for all of us. I kind of displace myself because I just be an evaluator. I'm happy. I'll look at Achane, I'll look at Jalen Wright, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I enjoy that. Like, I don't really have investment in wins anymore, except on game day. I've pulled myself out. I've divorced myself of that to try to be accurate and evaluate fairly. But there's most people, they're not like that. So it's a very difficult situation to cover, to be a fan, even for Ross. Like I said, Ross, I heard some stories about Ross. This guy really does a lot of good stuff, but he interferes. He doesn't know anything about football, and he's got a bad sense. He mixes business and football, and it don't work. It's a really bad situation, in my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I hope these people that are sick and old and tired. I went to the game week 2, and I had to watch all these beautiful fans. Like, you should have seen how happy they were. These people, they dress up, and they're like, that's my job, to get people pumped, to get this team pumped. And they're just all in positive. I'm like, dude, they're going to lose. And like, they just look at me like, what are you talking about? And so there's just a weird situation. I wished I could be honest and say positive things, but they're not there. I guess I could be wrong, but I think enough has been shown. It's a very difficult situation. Yeah, the framework was built to hide O-line. Yes, a total. My personal belief is that Greer made 2 picks with Jackson and Eichenberg, and he's been trying to hide his failures, and because he's more concerned about his status and his resume than anything else. Because if he wasn't, he'd have moved off Eichenberg long ago. And it shows me that he has total power, because Butch Barry is totally BSing. There's a really good direction. It's BS. No other team would keep Eichenberg. Greer's got the power. Yeah, they lack discipline. Yeah, they totally lack discipline. But again, if Greer really is in control, then what does that say about the coaches? What can they really do? What effect can they really have? So
Somebody donated money.
Where? I can't see it. Hold on.
I saw it.
Oh, sorry, I got lost. I hit a button over there. I was at the top. I'm like, I read those comments. Oh, thank you, Will. I appreciate that. Hey guys, with Tua, Will, very nice of you, brother. Really. Thanks, Cody. I got lost over there. With Cohen 1 away from retirement, why would we not entertain a fire sale at this point? Because Greer is not concerned. Look, Eichenberg is awful. Go look at my evaluations of Eichenberg and Jackson in 2021 preseason. It's the same kind of stuff. And if they're not willing to admit their mistakes, they could have got Morgan Moses in here at like $5 million 3 years ago when he left the Jets. But they're not willing to admit their mistakes. They're not willing to correct and be hard to people. So they're not going to do the right thing for the future of this team. This is all about Greer setting himself up so he doesn't look terrible.
He's in a spot where you go out and spend money on a DT, or if you go out and spend money and assets on a right guard, you look like an ass because you just let a DT leave and you just let a right guard leave.
Yeah.
So does he have the rope to say, guess what? I blew it. I got to go get these guys? Or is Ross looking at that?
Look at him when we lost to the Titans, hiding in the corner of the
that
office.
Was a beautiful picture. That was really
That's
well
totally
designed.
Who he is. He's got no balls. I mean, he laughed at fans about offensive line depth, was proven wrong, and he didn't do anything about it, and he didn't come out and say it was wrong. But he was like, he laughed at us on camera in the public forum, mockingly, and then was proven wrong, and he doesn't. He's a weak person.
Down.
He's a weak person. He's a weak person. He really is.
What's up, Joe, and everybody in the chat, man? You got a lot of people in the chat tonight. That's cool, guys. Appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, with that. So, Will, we should fire sale. If Ross really wanted to do the right thing, he would give we only have like one game, but he would say, look, guys, Greer, it's over. But what's going to probably happen is if we're really, really bad, he'll get rid of Greer and put him someplace else in the organization and promote somebody within, and it will be a repeat process.
Is his daughter next in line?
Who?
His daughter? Is his daughter next in line?
Yeah. So it's a shame.
You watch Any Given Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need that. We need that really tough daughter to step in. Don't sell the team though, but come in. She had more balls than anybody on that show. So we need the daughter to have some balls here.
I would listen. I really was a huge Ross fan. Then I got a little sick of him, which as far as with the Gase thing. But then when he came up and said, repeating the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity, I said, that's my owner.
Yep.
And then Greer and Flores said, we're starting young. We're going to build the right way. I said, that's my GM. I like Greer. I didn't like Charles Harris over Watt, Parker, and all stuff. But I said, this guy's got the right thing. But I really am not. I'm finished with Greer. But I really hope for Ross. And I wished he would just learn. I hope that his daughter, if she takes over, she understands. And I would love to see him get the victory. But the process that they're under right now is not it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Hey, there's my man. Well, I try to be honest, brother.
Yeah. Curtis, that's what I don't remember the first video I watched yours, but you were breaking down some offensive line, and I remember the game being that we dominated in the run game. And then I watched some of your film. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, what's this dude talking about, man? We just ran for like 100 and something yards. Like this guy's saying we didn't run block well. We got lucky. So I've just been listening to you. It was a different opinion for sure, but I could tell you knew what you're talking about. And I really listened this offseason. even though it was things I didn't want to hear. And I listened at the beginning of the year, and that Buffalo game showed me everything, man. And then everything since then has looked exactly like we kind of thought it would with that offensive line, and how we still look like we're getting pushed around. We can never – how can you win a game if you can never reset the line of scrimmage without tricking them, without outrunning them? That's the only way. You got to have a 2001, 2000 Ravens defense if your offense is never going to reset the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy to think about. Like, we're outmatched. I told you in the offseason, can we just run the ball? I want us to just line up and run. And you said we don't have the horses to do it. My mind, it's always been a mentality, any NFL lineman, they could go out there and at least do enough and get nasty. No, they're not there, man.
That's the thing. It's so hard to express football because most fans, they're normal people. The game of, I told you, I remember I played high school, had success in high school, but I was kind of like on the outs. So the reason I would get in a lot of times because I didn't have a father. All the players' fathers say, "You effing idiot, put Curtis in if you want to win." And so it was a lot of politics, and I got sick of it. And that's why I kind of gave it up. And then when I came back, I walked on a Division II school that was a Division I farm team for Georgia Tech. The coach that was there had left my college and then went to Georgia Tech and was the head coach there. And so they used it as a farm system for screw-ups. And when I walked in there, man, it was like there was steroids, there was racism, there was violence, there was like coaches, the nastiest. It was a brutal, like shot. And, you know, I went from like a guy who fought all the time. And then I went to Jim Morris. I was taking loads of acid and reading poetry because I wanted to rewrite my brain. You know, like I was hurting people. I was angry all the time. And I had a poetry teacher in my last year of high school said, like, think about this. And then, like, I was tired of living like that. So someone gave me a Doors album and a whole sheet of acid, and it, like, changed my brain for 2 or 3 years. So, like, I became a thinker from a brute. And then I walked on this team. And it was crazy, man. Like this, I was on a small little view, but it was like a microcosm of the higher levels. I couldn't, and I have friends who played Division I, and they were telling me stuff. And then all that stuff is like small compared to when you go to the NFL, because these people are almost sociopathic, because when you get on the field, the violence you got to endure, the violence you got to put out, the drugs you got to take to keep yourself going, and all the craziness that why do you think they have all these detectives following everyone around? These people are nuts. It's violence. It's craziness. And so then you take all that, and no one's like really pays attention to that psychology and that whole concept of pure inhuman activity. And then you say, well, you look at this film, and if we just ran the out over here, and if this guy, it's brutal. These guys in a pile grabbing each other by the groin, trying to hurt each other, pounding the people in the ground. The coaches are looking like, hey, the report says this guy's got a bad left knee. All right, the first thing I want you to do is cut block him on that knee. Like, they know it's pure, brutal violence to break the person. And if you don't, you get fired. All these people are walking around paranoid. Am I going to get fired? I'm not going to get my next check. The coach is like, it's insane. And so when you have to be in this mode of smoke and mirrors and movement and, hey, everybody's got to love each other, it's all really nice, we're just friends and don't want to hurt feelings, that's not what this is about. It's a meat grinder. And if you're not made of steel, you get turned into chopped meat and turned into a hamburger, and you get put out the back door. And so it's hard to explain, because, like, I'll say, oh, offensive line, it's got to be more physical. And people, like, they don't get it. You've got to have an offensive line to pound the people in front of you, so your defense could be fresh, so they can lay the hits. Because when they're hurt and they're tired, their hits are not as violent as they need to be. But when they're fresh, Now they're putting a little extra wood in. They're giving a little extra Jimmy. They're breaking the bodies of the opposing team a little bit more, and they're going to sacrifice their bodies. It all revolves around that physicality. A game of football becomes a phone booth in the critical situations every time you go to the Super Bowl multiple times. And if you can't handle that phone booth, that meat grinder, it's like two guys with knives that go into a phone booth and just stabbing and killing. And you got to take the blows, and the last man standing covered in blood, that's the guy who's going to get the ring. It's not like you're playing in the background and you're doing a dance like, Hollywood action. And it doesn't work like that. It's a meat grinder. And most people, they don't understand violence and the hate and the anger and the rage and the commitment to hurt and cheat and do whatever you can to get this win, because if not, you're behind his can. So that's what
you just summed it up. You just summed it up so well. Like, hard to hear, but it's the honest truth, man. It's the honest truth. Got
to be violence. The game of violence. Sorry, I went on a little rant over there.
That was great.
I had a White Claw, so I don't really drink too much. I had a White Claw. Maybe I'm a little ripped. I don't know. They're good, man. No sugar.
They are good.
Paying Ramsey was a mistake. Yeah, it's a mistake. We went all old, man. I mean, just think about that. We got Ramsey, who I liked. It wasn't too bad. The ammo you had to pay for.
Didn't have to pay a lot.
No, but still, it's just another older guy. And, it's a lot of money invested. Hopefully, I think he's doing pretty good. I mean, he missed a little bit last year, but yeah. But even Tehran, we're locked in Tehran's money until post-June.
Yeah. I was trying to tell my wife about what I think our team's biggest issue was. And I said, we got a bunch of Bruce Lees that'll kick your ass in the octagon. But the fight always ends up in a phone booth at the end. Always. So all the damage you did, everything you did, when you really got stuck up against that guy in the phone booth, he just massacred you. He got his hands on you. And there's always 4th and 1. There's always goal line. You can't escape that. And those are the plays where you win or lose. Mike loves to go for it on 4th. Get an offensive line, dude. And you can go for it on 4th and 2 and 4th and 3. Baltimore do it all the time. They line up. They're running because they just ran on 1st and 2nd and 3rd down. They're running, and now that they have Henry, forget about it, man. They are getting that first down. Gus Edwards was enough behind their line the last few years to get that hard first down.
What's the thing? You look at their defense, which is our defense, the McDonald defense. It's a light defense meant to stop the pass, but they've centered that defense around Jones and Pierce, two monsters that anchor the heart of that defense, so you can play that smooth, happy, fast kind of stuff. They got some big guys. Malbuke is pretty big too, but we don't got that. And so we are all in on finesse. Yeah, physical, it's always required. I remember I had played in flag football after college, and I was one of the best guys in the league, but these were the guys that weren't real players. I was a D end. I'd rush after the quarterback, and I was feared, I was 160 pounds, when I played college, 185. And I made it onto the team because they had me as just they never think I was going to make it. So they put me on a practice squad, and then I played end, and they wow, you were doing pretty good. But I was 160 pounds, and I was beating these guys up. But then I went to a real team, a flag football team that played in Giant Stadium. And I saw my old running back coach was in that league. And so I had played cornerback. Now I was 160, and we played this team that we couldn't beat. And because we couldn't get to the quarterback. So I'm I was killing it in the league. Let me rush after him. But the guy that I was going against was a former D1 player. He was 6'4", 310. And it didn't matter how much speed I have. He had the technique and he had the size. Dude, it was a joke. I was humiliated. And when I was 185, I was going against guys his size in college, and I was actually getting stuff done. But at 160, dude, and he was better than the guys I went against. The guys I went against were D2, and they didn't have his technique. It was like a joke. I felt like a baby. There's only 2 or 3 times in my life that I had felt dominated. And that's what it comes down to. If you got a guy who's bigger and more powerful than you, and he's got the technique, you're finished. And we got guys who don't have great technique on the offensive line, and they're not powerful. And so how do you work that? You can't. Certain situations you can, but for the most part, you can't.
I put my son through all the football, the flag football, all the levels. And I remember, a few years, both of my kids watching and going, wow, that kid's fast. And I would always tell my wife, wait till 5th grade and we'll see if that kid can play football or not, and you would watch the kids that were out there just breaking those big touchdowns, pads on, they play 1 year and they're done after that. So it's a different game. And that's kind of what we got going on. So.
Yeah, I don't think Ramsey's done too bad. I think he's done pretty good. But the problem is that we have so many other holes elsewhere, Let's see. Holy egg rolly. Dolphins should literally just build a team with O-line at every position all the way up from GM.
Yep.
Yeah. If we would have just built right. Look, just think about this. If we had drafted Creed Humphreys over Eichenberg and then had drafted Zach Tom over Easy and Tyndall, this team would be ridiculous. And if you just had paid enough money to keep Hunt, you'd have had Creed, Hunt, and Zach Tom with Tehran on the other side. And then you could have had your low-grade guy at left guard, and you would have been able to run the football inside zone, outside zone, and pass protect without all this pass rush mitigation. And you could have you don't put the money on Chubb, you put it on Hunt. You get Creed, Humphreys, and you had an extra 3rd-round pick. And then we used Hunter Long for the extra 3rd that year anyway. And then you get Zach Tom instead of Easy at Tyndall, who are a total waste. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. I feel like
Obama, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Wright's a dog. He's like the only guy we've drafted recently that and he's a running back, but Wright's a dog.
I like him a lot. Yeah. I like him a lot. Yeah, I think it was a good pick. And it's not like Greer doesn't get good picks. It's just, I think it was Omar Kelly said he just bats like 220, while the rest of the league bats like 320.
But his slugging percentage is low.
Yeah,
low slugging percentage. He's not hitting home runs and triples.
Yeah. How you doing, LaFama? I'm hanging in, man. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I'm slowly climbing out of the hole. Hey, Chris, what's going on? There's time for David Banner. There's a time for that's right. There is. We don't. There's like I remember like a Weaver saying we got to get this defense talking. They're too quiet. We never had that problem with Wilkins.
Yep.
You know. Yeah. How will Finns win this game? I think that
positive question.
All right, so
positive talk here, Curtis.
Yeah, I think
hopium.
I think that if you look at the Colts, their run defense is weak, but I think a lot of people haven't heard talk about it. It's that they've got a very small second D tackle. Brian is very small, and their backup's very small. Stewart's big; he's 314. Their linebackers, but the whole squad misses a lot of tackles. They got Raekwon Davis. He misses a lot of tackles. He's big, but he hasn't been good since he injured his knee in 220. So if you look at the Patriots game, it's going to be different and similar. The Patriots blitzed us more than anybody has in a long, long time. They also played crowded boxes and low leverage in the box. But even when I showed some film how some guys were totally failing, but because they were so poor and had small guys like Tavai is small, they just really didn't have a big. White is a good, but he was playing inside. He's a little small for that. But our running backs, they're tough, they break tackles, and they're fast. And when you put these guys on turf, and you add in a defense that's not naturally good at run defense, they've got a small D tackle, so Eichenberg and Brewer won't get overwhelmed too much, except by that D tackle too, but you could put Jones on him to mitigate that. You're going to be able to run that football. You're going to be able to get hopefully some broken tackles because they missed 51 tackles so far. That's tied for second to fourth in the league. And so by getting those runs, those broken tackles, you could pop them for home runs. You could pop them. Now, they're not going to blitz. the blitz actually can hurt you because when you blitz and you can actually run past and get lost in the scrum, they're actually, I think they're like 20% blitz rate, which is very, very low. It's 28th or 29th. So they're going to play a little bit off. They're going to play lots of nickel. And so I think there could be an advantage and a disadvantage, but I know that they miss tackles. And if we can run that football and get their offense and get them tired, we can break them like we broke Jacksonville and we broke the Patriots. Now, the difference is these guys score points. They've scored points just about every game. That offensive line and 2 tight ends, and then you add Richardson that can move, and we've struggled with move quarterbacks. So we might have to play a spy, and if you play spy, it kind of makes them a neutral party on a play. So we're going to have to limit their run game, kind of get them off, gets a couple of 3rd and shorts, and get this ball back so we can wear them out. And if that's the case, we can tack up those yards. But they're going to be able to run on us. They've run on just about everybody. So I don't think we have to have a 200-yard day, but we've got to have like 130, 140-yard day. And then I don't know if OBJ's playing. There's some issues going on there. He didn't show up today. And he's talking about like some emotional stuff. And I don't know what the deal is with that. But I showed in one of my podcasts this week that last year Waddle was getting 6.7 yards of cushion last year. Now it's down to 4.9. Hill was getting like 5.7 last year. Now it's up to 6.1. So teams are playing off on Hill. They're crunching up on Waddle, and he's doing a little bit extra, but he's not making those big plays. But if you can get that run game going, wear them out, and then you allow Waddle to make those big plays, because you're going to have to score between 17 and 23 to win this game. Because I think the Colts will wear us down a little bit on defense. They're going to be able to put some points on. I mean, they put like 24, I think, or 27 against the Steelers. They put like 27, I think, against the Texans. You know, they put 20 on against the Titans. They're averaging 23. We're averaging 12. So it's this run game and broken tackles, which I like with what Wright does with it. I love what Mostert does with it. And I think Achane can get it. You can get stuff on the edge with these guys because they got Kwity Paye, and then they got Latu. Both those guys are still Kwity is just a pass rusher, and he struggles a little bit. But Latu is a rookie, and so you could get some of this edge stuff. Their linebackers aren't so hot, and you can get these broken tackles, but you're going to have a steady supply of the run game, and Waddle's going to have to come up big, I think, and you can maybe even Jonnu, but you're going to have to put on your like 17 to 23. So I think we can win. You know, Richardson's going to have to throw some picks. Can't let him break out and get cheap first downs. But this is a different animal. I talked about in my last podcast. This is the best offensive line we've seen. And offensive line creates yards before contact. It creates protection. So they run a lot of pass rush mitigation like we do, but they can get the clock up to like 2-8 and 3, even with Flacco. And that's a lot of time. I don't know if Pittman's playing. They got 3 good receivers. If that's the case, they got a quality tight end, 2 quality blocking tight ends. So I think they're going to put points on. So we're going to have to run that football. I think we can. It's going to be about broken tackles. It's going to be about McDaniel being smart. And I think it's going to come down to Waddle doing his thing and his offensive line protected, because they're 10th in hurries. They're not good in sacks. They're not good in knockdowns, but the way they call things, because they don't call blitzes, they got good hurries, and that could be a little problem for us because we might have to bring more guys to protect, run more screens and play actions, and there'll be less guys in coverage. So it's going to come down to that run game, I think. But I think we can do it, not because our offensive line is going to be hot to trot. I think Jones and Tehran can, but I think that they're bad at breaking tackles, if that makes sense. So I do think we can win, but it's going to come down to that. Doors album, Sheets of Acid. Yeah, man, that messed me up. My friend, man, it's crazy. I never did drugs, right? And a friend of mine knew the local acid dealer, and we went to a party, and I drank. I guess that's a drug, so I did drugs. I was drinking a lot. And he's like, yeah, my buddy, he gave me this double dip sheet of acid, took a whole sheet of acid and ripped it in half. And he's like, what do you want? The bigger or the small one? Of course, I said the bigger one. Dude, the craziest stuff. I'd never seen nothing like that in my life, man. It changed the way I saw things. Oh man, every time I hit this button, it tips me down the bottom. Okay. So let's see. Did it make sense though, what I said?
Did to me.
Okay. Would you Curtis call for more blitzes concerned? No. You gotta time your blitzes nice, because blitzes are great, but what happens with a blitz, if it gets picked up and they got a good offensive line to pick it up, then that'll expose your secondary. But then another problem is if you blitz and you're blitzing a lot and you blitz on a rundown, that opens up the middle of the field so you can get a big run. And I think that you've got to, we've got Chop is going to have problems containing the edge. We're going to contain the edge. And so I think they're going to grind on offense. But you got to watch out, because you blitz and you got Nelson, you got, what was the other guy's names? Can't remember it. What is that? You got Robinson. I don't know if Braden Smith is going to play. That's a big piece. Kelly is going to play, but then they got Bortolini, the rookie they got. They've got, and the two tight ends are good. And one of the tight ends is like 267. And so he's going to be able to dominate. So you got to watch out, because this team, because you can blitz and all of a sudden the problem is that when you go after Richardson, you got to slow your rush to keep you contained lanes. And that's going to buy you a little bit extra time. Then you add a quality offense. That's going to buy you a little extra time. So you want to bring the blitz occasionally, but if that blitz doesn't get through, or if it comes in the wrong way, it can open stuff up for him to escape or to drop it off or to find a guy in the secondary. It's going to be tough for Weaver. I think Weaver, the way he plays this game and calls it as far as feel and design, is going to go a long way to saying whether he is really a good DC or not. People don't realize, look at the records and the teams they played and the points they put on. And when you have an offensive line the way they do, it is very difficult for a DC, especially when you got the front that you got now, because you're missing Phillips, you're missing Chubb, and you got a rookie over there. And even Ogba's got a bicep injury or something like that. And that's something that could slow you down a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he plays that. But he's going to have to blitz, because that's what this defense is. But I forgot it was last week. I don't think he blitzed too much. So you got to be wary, because this offensive line and these tight ends can pick it up, and he's got the ability to move to buy time. So, but as Christopher says, Richardson's probably going to be a little tentative. Yeah, he is. And is a propensity for mistakes, is a possibility for mistakes.
I'd rather play him than Flacco.
I think so. Yeah, I think a little. It depends. If we don't control our lanes and he could buy cheap yards with his legs, then I think that's going to be a major problem, because we always have, hey, Joe, what's going on? We need to be careful not to hurt you. Yeah, I mean, the only thing with Flacco is that you know what you're getting from him as far as where he's going to be as far as the platform. And I think that with Flacco, for us, you can attack him and not worry he's getting out of the pocket. But when you rush a guy like Richardson, you've got to control your lanes, because if not, he's going to escape. So I think it's a two-way street. Flacco definitely has the experience. I think Flacco is dangerous in a consistent sort of way, but Richardson is a big dude, and we miss tackles. So there's a chance that he can hurt us that way. And they don't, like I said, they're putting points on. You go look. With Richardson, they put 27 against Texans. I think they were up 17-0 against Pittsburgh with him in there. So this team is dangerous. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe Flacco would be more dangerous. I don't know. I think Ramsey, and it's another problem too, is Holland's not going to be in. Poyer's not going to be in. So you got May and Campbell as your safeties. And then you got Cater, who's playing boundary, and his weakness is mid to late clock coverage. And this offensive line is going to be able to get him the time that he needs to get to that mid to late clock. So we're down a lot of bodies in that secondary as well. It's going to be very, very interesting. Hey, my man Steve, I'm glad you enjoyed, brother. Glad you enjoyed, brother. So, I mean, I think you got Pittman, you got Braden Smith. They're questionable. If they're out, it's a big swing towards us. But if they're in, it's going to be very, very difficult. Mobile quarterbacks, spies, missed tackles, or broken tackles. I could definitely think that Mostert, Achane, and Wright are the keys, man. They got to break tackles. And a good thing is we got a rotation to keep these guys fresh. If you go back and look at the last couple of games that we've had success on the ground, most of that is from broken tackles and the running backs just breaking and giving their bodies up. Less about the yards before contact. If you look at on the season, Indy has 3.4 yards before contact, and we're 2.4. And our running backs are way better than theirs, except for what's his face, who's injured, he's not coming back. What's his name?
Wilson.
No, they signed Ahmed.
Oh,
no,
you're talking about that? Yeah, Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. But they signed Ahmed. I wonder if they're going to call him up or not. That could be dangerous. He could be dangerous on that team with the speed.
Well, there's two revenge game situations popping off here. Ahmed goes for a revenge game, and we got our old DT, Raekwon Davis.
Yeah.
So they love to do revenge games against us. But what was I going to say? I had something. We got Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith, I think, talking about broken tackles, that guy, we haven't really seen it, but if we get him the ball in the open field or quickly, he can break tackles and he can take it distance too. So I think
he
Smith,
good last week.
Yeah, that's a quarterback's best friend, man, is the tight end and the running game. Just give a quarterback, our guy Huntley, exactly what he needs: the tight end, the running game, and don't put it on his shoulders, man.
I don't know. Like, you go look what they're doing with the Broncos. Look what they're doing with the Chargers. Even KC. I mean, their teams are going in the right direction. And, Ravens and 49ers and all these teams have a template. But then you look at, like, say, the Bengals. They're in our mode. Pass. And you can see the inconsistency. You see the quarterback getting injured. It's a clear template that's going forward. And so it's just basic, you get a good tight end that can block a little bit and run a little bit. Look at the Lions, what they've done.
That's exactly who I've been thinking about. Like, that's the build right there for what's going on in the NFL right now. And you got the quarterback. And
look at it. He was a guy that got people laughed at.
Yeah.
But they put him in the right framework, accentuated his strength, hid his weaknesses, and didn't make him the guy that's got to carry the whole team. We decide to say, Tua, we're going to turn you into Dan Marino. We should have made him Bob Greasy. That was the biggest mistake. But Chris Greer's vision of the NFL was outdated. It was fun ball. But the league is more suited for the 72 Dolphins build than it is Dan Marino's 80s build. I mean, every team is running a ton.
Yeah.
Every team that's having success is investing in the tight ends and the offensive line. Receivers now are starting to they're important, but look at how they get traded. I mean, you're seeing top receivers traded all the time. Hey, I need a receiver. I'm going to go trade one. I'm not going to invest. I'm going to go get myself a lineman. I'm going to go get myself a tight end. I'm going to go get myself a D lineman or something, but we're so based on the past. So it'll be very interesting.
And how many picks has Josh Allen thrown this year? None, right?
Yeah, no, he could have thrown a couple. He could have thrown a couple. They weren't picked off, but he's way more consistent.
Yeah. And he's not trying to sling it. He's not trying to get it to Stephon Davis all game. He's just his hand was hurting against us. He got the concussion. Well, whatever it was, he got a concussion. They're just handing it off. That Jets game, I was just watching it going, they're just handing it off. I was even going to tweet, like, these guys are doing a hell of a job of handing the ball off tonight for both of these quarterbacks, And then when they had to throw later, it got kind of ugly, but.
But if you notice too, like the Jets, they've got a really good defense, but they struggle with the inside run. And you've got to be able to run in the A, and then the next most important is B gap. But then you've got to be able to stop the runs in the A, and next is most important is the B gap. That's what it's about on defense. That's what it's about on offense. And, the Bills, they struggle with the inside run on defense, but they can run inside pretty well. They can't run against the Ravens, and that's why they collapsed. Once they can't run in that A-B gap, then the whole offensive scheme breaks down, and Brady kind of loses his ability to navigate through that. But the Jets, they keep going. Notice how much, if you go back and watch a Jets-Bills game, notice how much the Bills were under center compared to how much the Jets were under center. The days of all-out shotgun are coming closer and closer to an end. And not to say shotguns is going to be not going to happen, but you can't just sit there all day and run your shotgun draws and your pitches outside and pretend fake and that's done. You've got to be a full complement offense, under center, running your football. And you go back and watch that Jets game, and you look at the Jets and the Bills and see how much success the runs were more from under center than they were in shotgun, because it changes the reads of the defense. It gives you a full complement run slate compared to the shotgun. And so teams that can't get under center, they're immediately got one hand tied behind their back, and teams that can't stop the inside run got one hand tied behind their back. And so if you go watch the games, you'll see 9 times out of 10 that plays out.
I'm going to start looking for that more, but it makes total sense.
Yep. It's and if you notice too, back in the 80s and in the 90s, your left tackle was the most important offensive lineman. They would have the best defensive end would play against him, and that would be the mano-a-mano battle in the 7-step drop. And then as time moved on and the passes changed to short passing, they realized that edge stuff ain't getting there consistently. So it became about finding ways to get pressure up the middle, because that's the quickest way to get to the quarterback. But then once that happened, the arms race changed, where interior offensive linemen went higher and higher in value. And so if you notice, even KC, once they lost that Super Bowl, the very next year, where they got Thuney from the Patriots, they drafted Creed Humphreys, and then they drafted the left guard that they had, because they realized that internal a trio was critical, even more so critical than the tackles. Look at their tackles. They've been using nothing. They had Orlando Brown, and they got rid of him. And they've had basically nobody there in the tackle spot. But they're able to run inside. They're able to, because if you don't have the right center and guard, you can't get under shotgun, because you get the quick jump and it's blown up in your face.
Yeah.
So, Abel, he finally did it. Yeah. The thing is, can we continue to do this? And will we have the talent? Was it that we finally found the right way to use them and we were exploiting them? Or was it that, and then they just didn't have the talent, so we were beating up on beating baby seals? Because that's not really a good defense. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. And we'll find out this week. This is a much better team. So anyway, guys, Cody, you can see anything left to say, anything I screwed up on, anything you want me to amend? Anybody have any comments before we kick this thing out?
No, I just want to thank you for letting me come on here. I don't have any people I hang out with in town. I just hang out with my family, and I just kind of don't get to talk a lot of football, So when I get a chance to talk football and people that thinking about the same stuff I'm thinking about all day, it's a great time. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you, Curtis.
Same here. I appreciate all you guys. Don't let her. Hey, Tommy, I bully you around, man. That's my job. Bully. I can't bully around this year. Not much to do.
Is that Bill? Oh yeah.
Oh, that
Bill's
reminds
from
me.
the division.
Yeah, it reminds me. Tomorrow we're gonna be doing AFC. I keep forgetting to do this, Tommy. I'm terrible. We'll be doing AFC shakedown with my man Tommy. We're gonna have each guy from the different teams. Tomorrow, if you guys want to check us out, we'll be talking about last week's games and this week's games. So we'll be going over the AFC East, where I could tell Tommy, you suck. Another AFC East title for you, you best. So, Cody, I appreciate you very much, my friend. I really do. You're a good guy. Everybody, thank you so much for stopping by. You guys are awesome, putting up with me. And Tommy, I'll see you tomorrow. You guys are all the best. Let's hope we win so we can at least stretch this thing out. Have a good night, guys. Be well. Go Fins.